afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Or should I say good morning? Yes. Good morning. It was a good night last night. It's my privilege and great pleasure, on behalf of Airfields of Britain, to unveil this flag.
We'll just go a quick speech and then we'll unveil it, okay? Okay. Well, just, let's see.
No, that's fine. But
are you sure?
I'd like to say.
Right. Well, good morning everyone. Thank you all very much for coming, and first of all can I also say thank you very much to Lieutenant Commander Steve Park for kindly agreeing to come along to help unveil this memorial. Just to give you a quick potted history of the airfield and why all this matters. Ever since the Airfields of Britain Conservation Trust, or as we call it for short as well, ABCT, first came into being in 2006. We've made it an absolute top priority duty among all the other tasks we do to properly honour all of Britain's disused airfields and all the people who've served at them with top quality memorials, as you'll just see in the next few minutes. So as regards Milltown Airfield, it is a very interesting history. All airfields do, but particularly so in Milltown's case, because originally this was one of that relatively small band of decoy airfields that became a real one. That is a remarkably interesting subject just in its own. I've looked through so many records over the years, that going back to the 1980s. Records tend to be rather skimpy, but from what we certainly are able to know of Milltown, it was certainly being constructed as a decoy airfield in the summer of 1940, and it would have certainly opened in that capacity a bit later that year, say around the time the Battle of Britain started, although actual confirmation of its use didn't begin until the spring of 1941. However, in October of that year, the decoy, which, without getting too technical here, it was called a Q site, which was a decoy airfield that consisted of dummy landing and approach lights. They proved very effective and they saved literally thousands of lives throughout the UK. But the Q site closed relatively early in October 1941. And clearly part of the thinking was that the authorities perceived Milltown as being too good to use as just a decoy, and therefore converted it into a real one. It took quite a while for construction to get going and then be finished, and it was originally anticipated to open this airfield as a real airfield in April 1943, but the eventual opening was not until the following June. And whereas the decoy had retained extremely strong links with Lossiemouth Airfield, which, by the way, to avoid any slight confusion, we call on our website Lossiemouth 2, because the first one dated from well before World War II started and actually had connections with people like J. Ramsay MacDonald. He flew in and out of there, go late 1930s and so on. So Milltown opened in June 1943, and it became the satellite to Lossiemouth and a bomber training element called Number 20 Operational Training Unit. So for the rest of World War II, Milltown served as an excellent, very faithful satellite to Lossiemouth, but it was also used in a standby capacity for operational bombers, and it famously participated, along with Lossiemouth and Kinloss, in eventually sinking the feared German battleship Tirpitz in the autumn of 1944. Lancaster squadrons flew up from their usual bases in eastern England, and they were temporarily based here to attack the feared German battleship with 14,000-pound tallboy bombs, and they eventually managed to sink it. After World War II, the OTU, which wound down. There was also, by the way, I should say too, late on in the conflict, Milltown took on an operational role, and it was number 224 Squadron which flew Liberators on anti-U-boat patrols and anti-shipping duties. So it, towards the end of 1944, came from legendary Cornish airfield St Eville, and then returned there again at the end of World War II. There were 2 training units here in the first year to year and a quarter after World War II ended, including number 111 operational training unit, which actually came from the Bahamas of all places. But then another big turning point in Milltown's life, and in not forgetting Lossiemouth as well, was in late summer, end of summer 1946, when the parent and satellite airfield switched from Royal Air Force to Royal Navy or Fleet Air Arm Control. And then from then until 1972, when both airfields reverted to RAF use, Milltown continued to play an extremely valuable role in helping to defend this country. And one notable aspect involved was the use of mirror deck landing aids. So this was a more advanced device that replaced the batsmen that were employed in aircraft carriers in World War II. They literally held, it was like ping pong bats in a way, and they'd be directing pilots to land like so. So this was a more advanced aid and safer in many ways, whereby when aircraft were coming into land on aircraft carriers, they were using mirrors to help them safely land. But the training aid was here at Milltown. A lot of the Royal Navy records, very sadly, they were maybe even destroyed, by all accounts, better say allegedly. So therefore, trying to trace actual usage of Milltown between 1946 and 1972 is a bit up and down. We do know there were some Fleet Air Arm squadrons based here, but no doubt it's incomplete. Once the airfield reverted to Royal Air Force control in 1972, it was still being used for flying. There were various exercises conducted here involving aircraft like Harrier, jump jets and Hercules transports, but notably also gliders were coming to the fore. A mixture of Royal Air Force and civilian flying club gliders. So why I mention that is that also because, as you will no doubt remember, all the military communications aerials that were put in the landing ground from the mid to late 1970s onwards, that was to do with a signals unit that was based here. Flying was becoming more and more difficult, and from what one can gather from records, it was suggested to close Milltown for flying around about 1975. Then the Fulmer Gliding Club, the civilian element, it eventually relocated to Kinloss, and the military gliding school that was here eventually relocated to Kinloss as well at the end of February 1977. Now, dates, as people like ourselves will tell you, are notoriously difficult when it comes to opening and closing dates for Britain's airfields. But by all accounts, as soon as the military gliders had left, Milltown closed to flying in March 1977. Even Lossiemouth's record books, and I've seen them at the National Archives in London, it is not entirely clear as to when this place closed in a flying sense, but suffice to say, we go to extremely major lengths to try and find the exact dates. After that, as I've said, Milltown Airfield was used for many years for military radio communications with all the masts that were there. They were removed in relatively more recent years. The land reverted back to the current landowner, and as you'll no doubt be aware, there are plans anyhow for a solar farm here, and I've certainly been aware myself. I know this area very well for sadly past family reasons. There's very notably the heavy goods vehicle driving school, which plays a very big part in just helping society. And therefore, just following on from that very final point before we unveil the memorial, this is all part of why not only the charity is necessary, but also not least our memorials. It's the phenomenal social impact of Britain's airfields. Essentially, we just cannot remotely afford to lose them in our everyday lives. These places are tremendous forces for good in so many ways. So as we just simply say in our travels, please do all you reasonably can to help honour, save, protect and respect all of Britain's airfields, whether active or, like here at Milltown, now disused. They really do help us in so many ways. And therefore, again, thank you all very much for coming. And we hope this memorial sort of brings good fortune, as they say. And therefore, we are really pleased and honoured, Lieutenant Commander Park and myself, to unveil what is now ABCT's 195th memorial. We unveiled 2 yesterday in Aberdeenshire, by the way, to yet another of Britain's absolutely top physical assets, in this case the one and only Milltown Airfield. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, here we go.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. If you want to move in closer, you're very welcome to. If you want to take any photographs, if you need to ask any questions, just please ask myself and my fellow staff here at ABCT. Thanks again.
No speech.
Thank you. That's very kind. Thank you.